Hey, welcome to the Strong Roots podcast. My name is Kristen Hill, and we are so excited that you're tuning in today. Our prayer is that you would move one step closer to Jesus through this series. So go ahead and check out this next episode. Welcome to the Strong Roots podcast. I'm here with Pastor John, and we are in our friendship season. And today we are talking about the importance of how to apologize and being able to apologize in friendships. And honestly, I can say this with all sincerity. Pastor John actually is the one who led the way in our relationship with apologizing, modeling what that looks like. And I'm genuinely excited to talk about this with you because I feel like you have so much knowledge and you actually live this out consistently in your life. So, Pastor John, what have you learned about being able to apologize in a friendship?
I feel like I valued long-term relationships, but I think the big thing is that the cost of apologizing and admitting you're wrong is super, super low.
Right.
And I actually think it doesn't cost you anything. I think you get stuff in return. I found in relationships, when I apologize first and I lead the way and I apologize in a truly humble way, I'm the one who leaves with the respect and the power and the control. And not that that's what everybody wants, but it's good. You know, we have a repaired relationship. People respect me more. And so often too, like, you know, when I'm arguing with Kristen and she apologizes first, or when somebody apologizes real humbly, it almost makes you feel dumb, doesn't it? It's like, why am I hanging on to this? Like, I wish I wouldn't have done this. And really early, I think my dad really told me, he's like, John, if you want to, like, be a well-respected man, if you apologize first, like, you really will. And ever since I was a kid, I've remembered what he said, and I've always tried to apologize first, and there's a huge benefit for it in my life. So I think you'll find that too. But yeah.
Have you always known that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, as early as I can remember, my dad always told me, you know, your key to freedom is apologizing first. I remember he told me it was like people have like little bullets that they put into a revolver relationally, and they're bullets that you give them to them, like you make the bullets for them and hand them to them by your wrong actions. And then they put them in their gun and they shoot them at you saying, you know, you did this bad, you did that bad, you know, it's a little revolver. And he said, when you apologize first, you're taking the bullets out of the revolver and you're throwing them away before they can shoot them at you.
That's
and
good.
I thought, oh man, that is like such a good idea. Like, thanks, Dad. You probably should have had him do this one. My dad does a lot of Strong Roots podcasts. But I think it's so true that by apologizing first, you know, I'm taking the bullets out of someone else's gun and then I don't have to get shot. Right. You know, and who doesn't like that? You know, and I always just think everything I'm apologizing for is a bullet that goes in the trash instead of into my heart, you know, so yeah.
There are people who are listening right now who are like, okay, that sounds awesome, but what do you do in relationships where you're the only one apologizing and maybe the friend, the spouse, has never apologized for things that you are desperately wanting them to own?
Yeah. You know, and I'm pretty good at handling conflicts like this. This is a gift that God's given me that I think it's really good. But I mean, first off, I always try to, at the start of any conflict, when I'm really frustrated, I want to put 100% of my effort into whatever percent of the pie is my fault. If it's only 10% my fault and I know it, I'm still going to allocate 100% of my effort into resolving the 10% that's my fault. Right. Always. And I don't even think you can begin to have the conversation until you disarm them. Because what people like to do is they try to blow up whatever part isn't their fault into 100%. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And isn't that crazy? So, like, if I'm arguing with you and it's 90% your fault, your natural sinful tendency is going to be to turn that 10% that's not your fault into 100% of the problem.
Right.
And Jesus says flip it. You know, he says really take care of the log in your own eye before you address the splinter in your friend's eye.
Yep.
And that's biblical. That's what we do. But I think the big reason is you're removing all the arguments that they have before. So then, you know, once you take all their bullets out, you can confront them and say, hey, you know, I've done this. I really think I've owned my part. Is there anything else you can think of, like we're having this conflict that I've done that's hurt you?
Right.
No. Well, we still have this big conflict, and I think that might mean there's some issues that I'd like to point out that you may have. You know, and one of the things I've noticed in our relationship is you don't often admit that you're wrong. And I'm not saying you never have. Maybe they never have, but you still say, you don't use superlative. But like, I would like for you to talk with me about the times in our relationship where you've owned some stuff that's your role. It's like, man, like, you must be a really good person for us to have been married for 12 years and for you to have admitted that you're wrong like 2 times that we can remember. Like, and I'm sure there's more than that, but it's just not very often. And it's not that I am upset. I'm just concerned about your character and your growth as a person to admit that you're wrong so rarely. That's probably how I'd handle that if we're role playing. But yeah.
Absolutely. And there are some people who aren't there yet.
Yeah.
Like, and to pray for them too, right? Because I think there was a season in my life where it would be an email a week later. Like, it took me a week to apologize for something.
Yep.
And I think the way you've led me, the way that you've prayed for me, I think have really paved the way for me being able to do it.
And my job is to, obviously, I'm not going to stand before God with Kristen, right?
Correct.
And like, my chief concern, I want to stand before God and hear him say, well done, good and faithful servant. I want to live in a godly way. And I'm also concerned about making her a godly woman.
Right.
But I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make it drink, right? And so a lot of times, we would get in a big fight. I'd totally own my part, and she wouldn't own hers. And I would do everything in my power to like light the way and clear the path, say, here this is. And then I'd recognize, hey, she's not willing to confess her sin at this moment. And making her is going to be a dysfunctional thing. So like, that's going to be on her. I'm going to pray for her, but like, I'm good.
Right.
I don't need her apology to be right before God. Like, I'm good, And I think that's a big deal too. If you know you're right and you know they're wrong and they're sinning against you, who are they sinning against the most though? God and themselves. And so like, a lot of times I just be like, Jesus, I forgive them for this thing in my own mind. I forgive Kristen, or I forgive whomever we're fighting with. I forgive them for this. I'm just going to let it go.
Right.
Because that's a story I want to tell in my life. It's like, I'm a graceful guy, confronted, did whatever. They wouldn't do it, and it's good. Like, who cares? Like, I still have a great life, so, yeah.
So a lot of us, we know the right thing to do.
Yep.
We know that we need to ask for forgiveness, own our part. But there's such a strong feeling a lot of times of anger, of pride. Like, I don't want to have to be the first one. Yeah. I don't want. How do you push through those strong feelings and actually own it when everything inside of you is saying, don't do it?
It's funny. I was mentoring an up-and-coming pastor literally yesterday who asked this exact same question.
Oh, really?
Yes. And you know the answer to this, don't you?
Yes, but I want to hear your answer.
you visualize a story you want to tell in the future about this. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like, I was totally wrong and I knew it.
Right.
But because I'm a prideful child, I just chose to hold that in and for no reason just, sin against something. No, that's not the story I want to tell when this is done. That's not what I want to think about. And when you do that, what we always tend to do, not always, but we often do, is we lie to ourselves and we concoct a story where we actually are the victim, where we justify our crazy actions. And that's where we start making bad choices in life. Because what happens, I know people who are so good at deceiving themselves, they can deceive themselves right into an affair, right into bad financial choices, right into bad career choices. And, that's not healthy. And what I think of when I think, here's my pride, here's my offense, here's my anger, is I think of the future that I want to live. And I just imagine giving all those things up and being miserable to hang on to this like sense of pride in the moment. And I'm like, yeah, not worth it. Like, I'm sorry for being a prideful jerk. And I'm sorry that I wouldn't admit that I was wrong for a long time. I'm sorry I brought you to this place where, my feelings were controlling like the dialogue of the conversation rather than God's truth. Like, will you forgive me? And there's always freedom there. Doesn't that always feel good?
I was just going to add, sometimes, I've done it wrong so many times that the satisfaction in you being the only, you could say everything and apologize for everything I want you to apologize for. And it's so empty. And it does not bring life. And even being able to visualize, like, even if he owns it all, like, there is still a piece of this pie that I'm not owning, and I am miserable, and I am not satisfied until I actually repent and ask for your forgiveness because we have a relationship with God. Like, visualizing that, yes, but visualizing you apologizing is not going to make me feel any better if there's something I still need to own.
And let me just tell you before, we wrap up because we're running out of time here, but I do want to say a good apology, a godly apology, and this is something you should write down. A good apology has a few different components. Number one, you have to not just articulate what you did, but you have to articulate clearly how what you did hurt the other person.
Right.
That's a really big deal. So, hey, here's what I did. Here's how I think it hurt you. Is there anything I'm missing? You know what I mean? Sometimes it'll be like, yeah, there's a lot you're missing. You did all this. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I did those other things too, right? And then once you get all that done, so here's what I did, here's how it hurt you. You say, I am truly sorry.
Right.
Okay? And that's fine. But then comes the fourth and final component. Will you forgive me?
Right.
Okay? So I'm not just saying, hey, I have regrets about what I did. It was wrong. I wish I wouldn't have. I'm sorry. But I'm now asking you to give me something that I don't deserve, which is forgiveness. And I think that's a big deal, like for the reconciliation, for the apology to go all the way around. And a lot of people don't do that. I see, my kids get in a fight, I've trained them. Sorry, I'm sorry. I really am sorry. It's like, stop. Like, ask me to give you what you need, which is my forgiveness,
Right.
And in doing that, when I'm asking for forgiveness, I'm not just helping myself, but I'm helping them choose to give it because I'm bringing the conversation to a decision, And that's a hard thing to do sometimes, say, I forgive you. I've seen people like, I can't say I forgive you yet. And it's like, okay,
right.
Well, I want you to know I'm still asking for it. And if you would ever like to give that to me, I would love to receive it and see our relationship be restored. But in the meantime, like, I recognize that in this circumstance, what I did, an apology isn't enough for you. And I wish I wouldn't have done that, and that's good to know where your relationship stands. So you have any, or I'm supposed to ask you a question now.
If you don't have one.
I just think, so you did not know how to apologize when we met.
Correct.
Effectively. What was the biggest thing, the biggest lie that you believed in your head about your refusal to apologize before we met that kept you from doing it?
It's all your fault. It's all the other person's fault. You said it, but it was, I have no part to play in this.
I am innocent.
Yeah.
And what was the key to undoing that?
It's choosing to see my role in it. And is that why honestly, it is truly being introspective and saying, I am an imperfect person.
That's it.
You are hurting. I hurt you.
Yeah.
And like, what part of me hurt you, and own it.
Yeah. It's believing that you're a sinner.
Yes.
Like, and I think that's the fundamental thing about Christianity, guys, isn't it? Is like, fundamentally, we believe that we are sinful. And it's just so easy for us to deny that. Isn't that funny? Like, we can be regenerate in Christ, have followed Jesus for years, and we get to this place where we literally push on a spiritual level the grace of Jesus out of our life by refusing to admit that we're sinful in relationships. We do so much wrong, but it's like, oh, this family, they hosed us over, this family, whatever. And it's like, oh my goodness, why are we pushing life and embracing death, pushing life from our life and embracing death. And that's what we do. And that's what relationally not apologizing does. Is it just makes your life full of death, full of moldy relationships is what I call it. But you got a lot of mold in your life. And what does mold do? Is poisonous, makes you feel sick, makes you feel yucky, makes you feel depressed, gives you spiritual, relational headaches, So I'm so thankful that we got to have this conversation. Yes. I'll let you wrap it up, though.
Thank you so much for tuning in. And I am genuinely excited to continue to talk about friendships with you. And I'll see you next time. Bye. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us on our other social media platforms. We don't want you to miss out on any future content. Thank you so much again, guys. I hope you have a great day. And I want you to know I am personally praying that your roots stay strong.